Welcome to Buzzwords, Business Models, and Playing Devil's Advocate with Oscar Cerezales. That is the title of this episode of the Event Manager podcast. My name is Miguel Neves, and I'm the editor-in-chief of EventMB, and I'm joined by the deputy editor of EventMB, Dylan Monarchio. On this episode, we talk to Oscar Cerezales about branding, about personal branding, and the thought leadership, provoking content that he shares on social media, sometimes contrarian, but always interesting. We talk about technology and its role in the changing role in the events industry, and how Oscar sees this evolving in the future, and how MCI and all its offices around the world approach technology. We do a little bit of a buzzword bingo with words like hybrid, experiential, and disruptive, decoding those and understanding what are real important words for the industry and what is just a buzzword for marketing. We talk about associations, their role in the industry, and how Oscar looks at them and sees them evolving and what may happen in the future. And we talk about how the post-pandemic events industry really looks like through mergers, acquisitions, consolidations, and even the role of technology in all of that. I hope you enjoy this episode, and please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a rating. It's always great to know if you like the podcast. Thank you very much. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Event Manager podcast. I am Miguel Neves, the editor-in-chief of EventMB. I'm joined by Dylan Monarchio, the deputy editor. And this week, our guest is Oscar Cerezales, the Global Executive President, Corporate Division at MCI Group. Oscar, thank you for taking the time to join us and for being part of this conversation.
Thank you, Miguel. And thank you, Dylan.
Thank you very much. Yes. So, Oscar, we've met a few times at trade shows. You have a very impressive CV, resume. You've been all over the world. You're now in Spain, but you normally live in Singapore. You're an athlete. You're an event strategist. You're all these things. And I wanted to start by picking up on this one quote that I've seen recently of yours, which is, "Thought leadership is the new sales." And I think this is something that you take very seriously. And I have to say, I follow you closely on LinkedIn. I know that you use the tool quite a lot, and you use it better than most, I think, as in my sort of social media analyst kind of view. And I wanted to maybe get your thoughts on that thought leadership, how important it is, and also maybe then talk a little bit about your strategy around that.
Well, that's a good question. There's a tricky question. There's a complicated question. Look, first, I do believe that we are in the era of, a specialist would call the inbound marketing, right? The era of interrupting marketing, or even today, this morning, I was in YouTube and I was just watching my team, soccer playing yesterday, and got, I don't know how many ads. So this kind of interrupting marketing, the cold calls, the flyers, these kind of things, I think that we are past this. And I do believe in inbound marketing. I do believe we're in organizations, where communities, where brands, associations, or governments, they create the right, let's call it ecosystem, let's call it environment. So you're kind of attracted to it. Is so they're earning organically your attention, right? Something which is, we're all fighting against attention of your customers. And I do believe that thought leadership helps a lot. The problem is that, what's the definition of thought leadership, right? In my case, to be honest with you, Miguel, I use LinkedIn I would say even as a therapy. Like every day I post something that I like, or I found funny or interesting or made me think. I don't post thinking in sales or clicks or views or the number of likes. So I try to be authentic. So sometimes some people say, "Why are you posting this?" Because that's a little bit, weird or something. I say, "Well, that's me." So I believe that we are back in the era of authenticity, and that's maybe not about thought leadership, but it's about just sharing clearly who you are, what you belong. Number two, I do believe that we should stop interrupting people with stuff and more noise and more content. And I do believe the era of pure sales, I'm not saying that sales are in it, of course, but it needs to be connected with other stuff. So again, we're back to attracting people, audiences in the right way. So that's what I think. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, by the way.
Well, I really like what you do on LinkedIn. I think you always have an interesting opinion. I think it also has a twist, a little bit contrarian sometimes, which I think is healthy also to kind of have discussions around important topics. But how do you think that relates to the event world? Because, part of what MCI does, part of what almost all event planners do is this communication and this attracting people to events and kind of a lot of people do the interruption marketing. And how do you think that then evolves into strategies for communication around events?
It's well, you're mastering the art of asking difficult questions. So let me see if I can answer that. Look, I think that for decades, this is something that I trying to event myself. We've been as an industry very, very focused on I would say the tactical kind of, what I mean, the tactical conversation, the conversation on being more effective, the conversation on being more efficient, the conversation of margins, the conversation of roles, the conversation of rules, the conversation of who does what and who is entitled to do. And I'm done with that. Not me. I mean, I know a lot of people. It's like, okay, let's move on. Come on, guys. I do believe that we need to talk more about a strategy. However, that's becoming also a buzzword. All of us, we're talking about strategy. So what strategy? To me, is a conversation of how do we allocate our resources? How do we bring this to the next level? How do we push the envelope? And if you ask me, what we're doing in our company, and we're doing with a lot of friends and competition, I mean, all of us, I do think that we are in the business of building communities. And by that, I mean that whether you're a corporate or you're an association or you are a government or you are in this ecosystem as an agency, as a convention bureau, as a convention center, it doesn't matter, of a tech company, you're in the business of building community. And building community is a combination. This is an art and a science. So there we all need to think about create communities, building communities, grow, engage, create somehow of a monetization strategy as well, replicate communities. And that's where I think we expand our brains. And this is not just about events. That we've been together in a lot of trade shows, and I think we all agree the fact that events is not just tourism, is business, is economic impact, is business transformation, is social transformation as well for destinations and for communities. And I do think the stretch is back to that. How, in terms of economic development and social transformation, we do good. We do good for our companies, for our organizations, for ourselves, and for the planet. And I do believe that if we change this mindset from events to building community and doing good and social transformation, economic impact, we change the game. We can change the game. It's not easy though.
Yeah, really interesting. Yeah. So
going back to the concept of building community though, as events move to, as events have in the past 15 months moved almost exclusively virtually, and the content consumption for them has moved, and it's to a significant degree on demand. How do you think that's going to impact the shift towards building communities with events? And is it a question of expanding your sort of service and your value to the community such that you're building the community and the value feeds into itself? Or is it kind of a question of events sort of moving their services more into the digital marketing sphere?
Look,
yeah,
what I would say is things have changed, right? I would say that I don't see any new trend because of COVID. There's actually the same trends. They have been just accelerated, that's all. So one key trend, it was before COVID, is how to get more attention, how to increase engagement, right? Whether it's digital, because digital is nothing new. We have been organizing digital events and hybrid events for the last decade. It's not just
certainly not to this degree, though. I mean, there might have been some kind of a broadcasted.
Absolutely, but it's just a volume thing. It's just a volume game, and tech is getting better. But let me put it that way. Best events, and by best events, I mean the events that are meeting their goals. There is barely a correlation between best events and best tech used. However, there is a correlation between best events and best design of the experience. And by design, I mean to be changing. And that, of course, is tech. Absolutely is tech. But as you know, is applying a methodology, a design, etc. In other words, I'll tell you about our own company. In MCI, of course, we used to organize pre-COVID 5, 7, 8,000 events every year, right? I'm just trying to be very simplistic, because what we organize is we do a lot of campaigns for brands and activations, and also campaigns for associations, and events is just a portion of it. So we do more, right? But if you say with events, now we're doing 10, 20, 30, 40,000 to your point, Dylan. Of course, that's not to the degree that we used to do it. Now it's bigger, bigger, bigger. Now the margins are different. So we went from low volume, high margins to a different game, which is high volume and low margins. This is a completely different game. So organizations need to be ambidextrous organizations, and you need kind of two different business models. One which is anchored in kind of the past, where it's engagement, is experiential and everything, and another one which is a new one, which is hybrid, which is digital, which is high volume, and with a lot of tech platform business. So it's kind of two different worlds colliding, intersecting. Let me give you just a final thought on that. In the last year, so the last 12 months at MCI, 70% of the new hirings as talents, they have nothing to do with the events industry. They have nothing to do with the tourism industry. We're talking about the expected, tech guys, data analysts, etc., but also copywriters, also anthropologists, also psychologists, as you know, also neuromarketeers. So all these people, that all the skills that together with the previous skills that we got in the company, need to push these not only to a new degree in terms of volume, but again, pushing the envelope to let's do the right event in terms of engagement, in terms of meeting goals for all stakeholders, and again, back to economic impact, social transformation, etc. I'm not answering you, but I'm giving you some ingredients.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, if one of those goals now is about building community rather than engaging in traditional marketing as things move online, and planners in some sense have to upskill to deal with that, with the new online business models that you were talking about, then where does the community come into that? I mean, there's a strong precedence for communities online. If you look at the video gaming industry, if you look at, social media platforms, like major social media platforms, there's obviously a capability to develop that community online, and it can be quite a strong community. So exactly. where is where event planners sort of missing the boat on it?
Yeah, to my point, I think is basically, I'm going to oversimplify everything, but I think is business model as innovation and new skills, as I said. So whether we like it or not, an event planner needs to be surrounded by new skills. And you mentioned, for example, electronic sports, for example, right? Or there are other industries out there that with different skills, they've been working on hybrid and digital for the last decade. And the level of engagement is huge there. And this is not only because of the design, this is also because of the content and the skills and the client mix and everything. That's one side of things. Then is business model. And as our industry, let's be honest, I mean, we have been working with business models that are anchored in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, which is adding good technology now. But as a business model, meaning a combination of the audience segmentation, the value proposition, resources, talents, new cost structures, revenue structures, it is very, very, very similar. So there is, in my opinion, back to your question, there is a lack of business model innovation, and there is a lack of new skills. There's not enough reskilling and upskilling. It's not enough at all. I mean, you need new ingredients in the cocktail to bring this to the next level.
I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the role of technology in all this. I noticed that one of the things that you posted recently was the Event Tech 800 graphic that we also did a post on. I think it's down in Australia, they made a study. They found 832 companies, I think, in the event space. Mm-hmm. What's your view on, this kind of sea of different event technologies and different kind of options? I know we talked about, strategy not necessarily being the technology, but having a strategy behind it. But how do you approach this sea of choices? And how does maybe MCI approach this as well? I've seen some instances of having your own platform, but I've also seen some situations where you use different platforms. How do you address this, and how do you help your clients figure that out as well?
So, well, number one, I think is a typical case where there is an explosion in technology in our sector. We've seen that in other sectors as well, right? And I think when it comes to tech, well, there's an explosion everywhere right now, right? Event tech, MarTech, lab tech, everywhere there is an explosion. So we should wait and see. There will be consolidation for sure. The way we deal with it at our company is and again, I'm trying to simplify everything because we are different. I mean, we have more than 60 offices in different countries and a lot of clients that sometimes, the clients, they have their own tech and everything. Sometimes we come up with ours, but basically we're tech agnostic. There are so many good techs out there and they're becoming better and better and better. It makes no sense to just focus on one. That's number one. So we are tech agnostic, meaning that there are different solutions. We end up working with, event tech. We should define what event tech is, but okay, let's go to, if there are, 10 different segments in event tech, for each segment, we normally work with 2, 3, 4, 5. Because we believe that we still need to wait a little bit till we get the one or two that are really above the others, right? And that's coming. If you go back to event tech platforms, there are some of them that are really, really solid. There are others that are not that solid, but better when it comes to the possibility of customization. There are others that are not that easy to customize, but they're really good in sense of security. So you don't have the perfect platform out there. So we decide, depending on the pros and the cons, we try, sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not. We try to be consultant to clients, say, let's do an analysis, an assessment. What are your needs? And with that said, these are our suggestions. Sometimes the client comes out with their suggestion, but you can tell that it's becoming a consolidation is coming. So one, we have a wait and see kind of situation. Two, we're kind of tech agnostic. Three, we play a lot with the stack. Right, we play with the stack, and all of our teams, depending on the project, depending on the client, we'll play not only with one technology. Sometimes, in a digital campaign, we're playing with 25 different technologies all together. So basically, the technology is good enough. Where the magic happens is where your team start connecting all of them, and one tech is talking to the other tech, right? So these are our approach to technology. At the end of the day, we believe it's not the solution. I believe is just an enabler. It's super important, absolutely. And it's just a matter of a scale and reach, and also automation and efficiencies. So those are our take on tech.
And I mean, I don't know if you can talk to the making that strategic decision. Was that something that you discussed about how to approach the different technologies? And also in terms of the training of staff, I think you have a certain level of training or understanding of each platform, but there's probably some components where being an expert on a specific platform can help, right? How do you manage that balance? If you could talk to the decision of making that, and also managing that balance of going deep on a platform or knowing different ways to connect different platforms.
So again, we are, we're probably not the right example here or the right benchmark, because we are, as I say, we have more than 60 offices. So that means that each country is a bit different. Even if we work with the same client, our team in India working with the same client, our team in Argentina or Canada and Australia, they're facing different realities, because some of the budgets are localized, some of the needs are localized, and even if your customer has a global strategy, when it comes to the local activation, it works differently. So to your point, the answer is a combination of top down and bottom up. Top down meaning that from a management level, we took the decision of focusing on a number of techs, right? But it was a good number, meaning that we took decisions based on, as I said, the level of customization, sometimes cost, sometimes the tech per se, the ability to scale and reach, customization, security, etc. But allowing the local teams with the local clients also to come up with their own kind of needs. I give you an example on one market. There are available amazing techs out there, but our team in China, of course, they need to work with some local kind of tech. So at the end of the day, you need to believe what's the right tech to use. So that's step number one. Step number two is globally and locally. We have certain things that are centralized and certain things that are localized. There are trainings, and we got what we call champions. So if you go to the to the top 3, 5, 10 event tech platforms, we got champions. And by champions, we mean talents that they have been working with and testing and failing and fighting and understanding and failing the different tech platforms. But it's a continuous learning process because tech is evolving, right? So we need to work with them. It's not just you wait and see there. So this is how do we approach. But again, this is just only on the event tech platform. As you can imagine, there are other techs out there that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to play a bit of a buzzword bingo with you, if you will allow, maybe to lighten up the questions. And a little bit linked to technology. I mean, we hear these words all the time: hybrid, experiential, disruptive. You know, what is real? Like, what is really a strategy? What is really part of the solutions and really part of what we should be looking at? And what is a buzzword that is just a marketing buzzword? I mean, maybe start with hybrid. How do you feel about hybrid? Is it just something that we like to talk about, or is it actually an important thing that we should understand and kind of dissect?
Yeah. Look, the first thing I would say about the buzzwords, and I will answer, hybrid, is that for me, for example, my English is not my mother language. So we use a lot of limited kind of words, and we use a lot of these words. And sometimes we're talking to some, Americans or Englishes, or what you're using so many times the this or that word. And sometimes you don't get it, so you're right. So that's first thing. We use a lot of buzzwords, but I think it's cultural or limitation of language. Second, on hybrid. We've been doing hybrid for decades, not to the degree that we're doing right now. But second, I think, of course, is a buzzword. If you check other industries, like again sports, they've been doing hybrid now for a decade, right? So I do think that hybrid is here to stay. There's nothing new, by the way. It's just the tech is getting better, as we said. I think that the key driver here is not the event planner, is not the design, is not the tech, is the CMO. What we could say in the last, I would say 5 years, is there's a radical change in the way that CMOs are spending the marketing dollars. Right? They're using more and more and more channels. They're fragmenting the spend. So the omni-channel is different now versus 5 years ago. So it's not hybrid because we human beings, we're biased. And we tend to be, because of the evolution, we tend to be binary. 1, 0, black, white, hybrid, or face-to-face or digital, right? So I think that it's not hybrid. It's not digital and or face-to-face. The point is, there is a campaign. So it's a brand activating an audience. It's a company launching a product. It's an association activating their community, and they need to play with different channels, 10, 15, or 12. So it's not hybrid. I think it's an omni-channel kind of answer. So to me, there's nothing right or wrong with the word hybrid, but I will change by omni-channel or multi-channel, which is a bit different, by the way, because an omni-channel, you have all channels speaking to each other and getting data. Multi-channel, they work in isolation in a way. So that's my opinion. I mean, nothing wrong with a word, but I think it's a limiting kind of concept.
And what about experiential marketing? I know this is something that you talk a lot about, and disruptive strategies. So those things that we need to kind of dissect and understand deeper, or are there marketing terms for kind of bigger things?
So, okay, let's talk about disruptive. Well, disruption probably is the buzzword of the buzzwords, right? I really think that everyone. It's funny, when sometimes I'm reading something like this morning. I was in Twitter. Someone saying I am a disruptor evangelist or something like that, and so far, right? Everyone is a disruptor. Everything is disrupting. Every technology is disrupting. Last week I was with a startup, and they want to disrupt Google, and okay, good luck with that. So if you go back to the element of disruption, I think that's the thing. So disruptive innovation is a term coined by Clayton Christensen. So this Harvard professor, if you go back and Google it, disruptive innovation, basically, and again, oversimplifying everything, it's the moment when a market, you got the big players, they're not paying attention to the small players. Small players, and normally they come out with good technology. They're paying attention to those clients that the big players they don't want because they don't get enough margins. The small players, they're very agile because of size. Their speed to market is huge, and they're growing incrementally, exponentially. But they're so small that the big players are not paying attention. Suddenly, of course, they're growing exponentially. Boom, right? They got a piece of the market of the big players that we're not paying attention to. And you know all the examples, the blockbusters and the Nokias of this world, what happened with them, or the Codex. So to me, it's a buzzword, and we need to avoid buzzword. But the concept is there. The concept of our ecosystem has been very rigid for years, meaning the players has been there forever. The rules of engagement, the margins, the who does what, I'm giving you an award and you give me an award, and I do this and you do that, and you cannot do this because that's not allowed, even if it's not written in stone. Now it's changing. And COVID is helping, by the way. So I think that if you think about the forces impacting a market, substitutes, for example, not competition, but substitutes, and new roles, a new financial game. This is disrupting everything, but not in a buzzword kind of process, more in back to Clayton Christensen concept of disruptive innovation, of all the small players. They're really fast going after clients of pieces or market share deals. Look at that. In our case, in MCI, for example, we have different brands, we have different business models, we have different products, we got stakes, we got spin-offs, and we're trying to play this game, to innovate, to go fast, to test, and as a lot of people say, to fail fast if needed, and learn. So that's on disruption. On experiential, I would say there's another disruptive kind of buzzword word, very experiential, coming from marketing, advertising, but now in our business. I do think that experiential probably is replaced by engagement, which is the next buzzword. And I think that whether you call it an event, a campaign, an experience, an engagement, okay, it's there, but to me it's so obvious that it needs to be an experience, but everything needs to be an experience right now. When you consume media, education, when you walk on the street, where you get some food in a nice restaurant, everything needs to be an experience. So I think it's definitely a buzzword.
And if you had to choose any of those as what you recommend the industry to focus on, what would you choose? And maybe there's other ones, right? Yeah, other ones. Any buzzwords that I think are big. What do you think is really what the event industry should be focusing on?
Okay, I'm going to give you another one. I think that we need to focus in, and I don't know if this is the right English, but there's a lot of books on ambidexterity. So ambidexterity is you can play with the left and your right hand. If it's very easy, ideas are easy, execution is hard. So the ideas on let's be innovative, right? Let's be customer centric. Let's play the digital game. Let's play the face-to-face game. Let's play the old industry. Let's play the new industry. At the end of the day, that's really difficult. You need to have like ambidexterity, an ambidextrous organization where you have like two two business models, two coexistent models, where one is based in what you have been doing in the past and where you're really good in this face-to-face interactions, activation of these kind of campaigns, but you're also really good in a new business model with new clients, new rules of engagement, new skills, new ways of making money, new everything. And the coexistence of both are I think this is basically the key of survival and the key of growth now.
So, Oscar, wanted you to maybe take us a little bit through your career, and I wanted to cover a little bit of your role with associations, and particularly with PCMA. I know you've played some pretty important roles with PCMA. Can you just talk us through your kind of career development, both in work but also the association side?
Oh, well, I'm not that important, but I share with you anyway. Look, I've been working in this industry for 20 something years, but I'm an engineer. So I started working for a company that was close to McKinsey, so consultant. Super big coincidence, I started working in this industry. That was 20 plus years ago, more than that, in Barcelona, my hometown. And that's the era of the Olympics. So everything was booming. And I realized that this was a sector was growing double digits. And I say, okay, that's interesting. Let's do something there. Starting in an agency called Pacifico in Barcelona. Then I moved to GL Events. So I was working basically in one of their convention centers here in Barcelona as well, CCAB. Then joined MCI. So in MCI, I started working in association solutions between Geneva and Barcelona. Then moved to Brazil to run Americas for the company. And then I moved to Singapore to run Asia Pacific for the company. And then from there, my current one, which is around the whole corporate business unit of the company. That's where I'm between Europe and Singapore. So that's professional. Now, personally, to your question on associations, and was been very well with industry associations from the very beginning. I remember I started again 20 plus years ago with ICA, the Forum for Young Professionals, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. Then I was very involved in Latin America when I was living there with sites. At some point in Spain, together with a good friend that you may know, Eric Motard, we decided that we didn't like any of the local associations, so let's create a new association. But it was so complicated to create a new one, status and everything, that we thought, okay, let's open a branch or a chapter or something. And we contacted MPI, and we found MPI, the Iberian chapter. And then I stopped. After 10, 15 years of being very, very involved with associations, industry associations, I felt a bit, I don't know how you can, a bit discouraged, a bit, I don't know if I like what I see, because I thought it was a little bit of same people, same conversation, same everything, same, I don't know. I felt I need some oxygen out there. And because I like a lot of, I'm curious, so education, content was the appetite of that I had. And I found that PCMA, back then, they have a good content, good education that I was looking for. And that's all. I started just going to their events. I found it interesting. I found it different. That was probably 10 years ago. Very American back then. Now that they've changed. And basically, I met a good friend, Ben Pedegabure, and now is running head of Europe for marriage. And Ben was the only non-North American board member. And I found it interesting. And then together with Ben, asked me, but hey, why don't you join the board? And we need more, different voices, etc. I joined the board. I stayed in the board for a few years. And right after I left the board, I've been involved in a number of projects with PCMA. Actually, more involved now than I was in the board. So projects, internal projects, external projects. But what I tried, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, is just to connect my passion with PCMA needs. So for example, when it comes to business model innovation that we taught, we created a number of seminars, workshops. We created, for example, leader summits, and a number of other internal things. So I'm trying, again, sometimes successfully, sometimes not, to walk the talk, not just being close to an institution for the sake of being close there. Activating projects, walking the talk. This is where I'm right now.
Interesting. And could you talk a little bit about how you see it being complementary to your role at MCI? Are you able to do different things on behalf of an association, and how does that complement what you do professionally?
Okay. I'm not going to talk about our PCMA. I mean, in the last 25 years with associations. Okay. Look, there are two angles in here. So the number one is the positive angle. Education, but not the official education, not sitting, a session in a breakout, education meaning all the people that you meet, right? All the so interesting, fellows, colleagues, competitors, peers, right? So that
can be called like cross-pollination of ideas, exactly. Something like that.
Exactly. And to be honest, my best colleagues are those that have been mentors, coaches, friends, and devil's advocates. Devil's advocates of, Oscar, are you sure about this? Don't you see that coming? I really value this a lot. So that's what I think about education, not education on, again, the typical education. You know what I mean? So that's number one. Number two, they gave me the possibility also to do something. And by do something, I mean just to go and do shit. Like, okay, let's create a certification for this. Let's create a program for that. Let's help here, right? And some point is the PowerPoint works, but they gave me also the ingredients and the resources to execute, right? On the negative side, though, it could become a lifestyle. You know what I mean? Because we all been there. Like, oh, I need to go to this trade show and the other trade show. I need to go to that event until the event, and you end up like, okay, I have a job. So how I can do my job and at the same time, give so many hours to the association? That's a trap, and I've seen a lot of people caught in that trap. And I think that at some point it's addictive. I think it's addictive, and we all seen, all of us, like, no, I need to go to there because I need to be in that whatever round table. And in reality is no, you don't need to be in that table, right? Mm-hmm. Also, I've seen on the negative side, there are some, we all recognize, I think there are some people with agendas, and that I don't like. People using and abusing of being a board member or very close to this or that association. Overall, I must say that it has been positive, bearing in mind that I've done a lot to not be caught in that trap that I mentioned to you. And you could see that the last 12 months, I've done really an exercise about trying to avoid as many, digital events as possible, because every day we go like 20. And at some point that was killing me, right? So I think that you need to choose your path and select. You cannot be super active in 3 associations at the same time, and you need to be really careful with the time that you are allocating to your associations and to your job, right?
Sure. No, that makes a lot of sense. And where do you see these associations going? This is such an interesting time of disruption, consolidation, technology, community management we were talking about earlier. Do these associations, generally speaking, still have a role? And where do you see them, or what do they need to do to be relevant?
Look, I think there's 2 elements, angles colliding, which is number one, what we all wish and what will happen. I think that we all need, and what we say, all the industry in general. The industry in general, we need, we need less associations. We kind of have like 150 associations. That makes no sense. That's not efficient. That's not effective. And as an industry, we cannot have one voice. It's impossible. Even in COVID times, we didn't have one fucking single voice to go out there and, and fight for it and, and talk to governments and lobbying it. We couldn't do it. So we need less associations. We need consolidation. The reality, I don't think it will happen. I don't think it will happen because we will, maybe it happened. I don't know. There's some consolidation, but it's very small. And I think that first we were all expecting some consolidation because of some associations suffering because of low reserves and everything. But because of government funding or because some resilience or others, I mean, they're still there. That's number one. Number two, as I said, when you're a member of an association or you're a board member or a simple member, you're very proud of it, right? And you want to protect your own friends and your own world and your everything. So I think that associations are and will be very, very resilient, but they're not effective because they don't have enough volume. The margins are not huge. All associations, whether industry associations or other associations, they're all fighting for engagement, for new members, for keeping sponsors. They got substituted, etc. So I think that the future should be around consolidation. I don't think it will happen. But number two, to your question on becoming relevant, I think that I think that society in general, it goes faster than associations, much faster. Associations are because of the nature of the association, because the governance and the way they're organized, they're slow in taking decisions. And that's it. That was yesterday. That will happen tomorrow. So I think there is a rethink needed. I think if you think the number one, the decisions, it needs to be more agile, and that only will happen if the sizes of the boards are smaller. I mean, you saw some boards are 20, 30, 40, 50 people. I don't think that's very effective. I do think the value proposition need to be revisited. Third, I do think the associations, they need to be better in productizing, like creating new products. It could be tech, it could be events, it could be a certification, it could be magazine, it could be content, I don't know what it is, but I need to create something to glue the community. And again, back to what we said at the very beginning, the new skills. And basically the last point is they need to be smart in what to insource and what to outsource. Let's put it that way. And I think that associations, as they are still, they're probably in this ecosystem that the ones that they need to innovate more and more in their business model, because corporates, we are forced to, we have to. Associations, they don't need to, but they have to now.
And I mean, I think that's all great advice, and you're talking about business strategy or association strategy in this case. But I guess what I'm hearing you say sounds like it would also apply to any company in the event industry. Would you give the same advice to, business advice to people, or is there a specific thing for associations and then the business advice would be different?
Look, yes and no. I do think that what I'm doing, I shouldn't be doing that because I'm oversimplifying, I'm stereotyping, and that's not true. Each association is different and each player is different. Now, would I give the same advice? Well, the advice that I'm giving you is the advice that my grandfather will give you. I mean, that's common sense, speed and agility and common sense. Well, come on, you don't need to go to Harvard to that, right? What I would say though is we all need to pay attention as companies, etc., that we're all biased. We're all biased, meaning that we're all surrounded by people that tell us what we want to hear. We don't want to confront realities about your product is shit, Oscar. Well, I don't want to hear that because my product is my baby, but maybe he or she is right. So first, we need to assess our own bias, right? Second, we need to assess, I think we're all obsessed in what's changing, where we should be obsessed with what's not changing, what's not going to change. I think we'll need to get obsessed with less is more. We're all coming with new products and new services, and let's do more communication and more content. We have enough content. The world needs less content. The world needs more useful companies. And I think this, we all need to revisit why you're here, what problem are you solving, right? And I think it's basically down to my grandfather's kind of advice. He would tell you the classical, like, we're all coming up with new products and everything. We're trying to find clients to our products. And I think that we need to find products for our clients. We have been looking in ourselves rather than, what our associations, what our corporates, what governments need. And secondly, do the exercise, what they will need tomorrow. Because if you ask a CMO, if you ask an association CEO, if you ask an event planner, what do you need today? They will tell you something. They will tell you part of the story. They won't tell you the other part of the story. That's when you need to, the art and the science to ask the right questions. But also we need to come up, what are we going to need tomorrow? What are the new needs of tomorrow? So what are the trends impacting your clients? So as an example, we're all again obsessed with COVID, vaccinations, passports, government restrictions, but that's obvious. Of course, it's impacting the industry. But what about new habits, the new consumption habits? How society will consume education or media? How organizations will be structured tomorrow? How marketeers are going to spend their money in their channel? These are the slow-moving trends. And I think this is our nature of human beings. We're very attracted to the fast-moving trends. We're less attracted to the slow-moving trends. So, in fact, the final point would be we're all biased. And one of the top biased in this world is we tend to, I would say, undervalue the long-term impact of things and overvalue the short-term impact of things. And this is a trap. So I think it's all about traps. I need to be smart enough and a strategy and think is all about where are the traps and trying to avoid the traps. That's the evolution, I think.
Some great nuggets of wisdom there. It came to mind that quote, fall in love with the problem, not the solution. I think that's part of what you're saying there, right? So we need to figure out what the problem is and figure out different ways to solve that rather than have the solution and try to match the solution.
And Miguel, the art of thinking. I mean, we're all just watching screens and there's this lost art of thinking. Sit down and think, just draw something or listen to a podcast and then to your podcast and draw something, read, write down, think, go for a walk. We all just getting obsessed with more and more and more content, but I think we are not thinking enough. I'm not saying it's easy. Yeah, sometimes I go thinking, I go crazy, but you know what I mean.
Absolutely. And something to consider maybe when we design events as well, right? I think adding more content to events doesn't necessarily make them better. Maybe having some thought time is also useful in all of that.
Exactly.
Oscar, thank you so much. We're going to wrap up. That's been fascinating. It's been really nice to talk to you and just discuss all these topics. Thank you for being so open and honest about everything.
Sure.
I want to wrap up with one question that we're asking all our guests that will hopefully lead us to even more great guests, which is, do you have somebody who you'd recommend that we invite on the podcast?
Oh, Lord, that's a good question. I'm going to give you, but I can give you a few names. I'm going to give you one. I'm thinking about someone that, number one, is what we would call a client. Someone that probably is, the type of people that you can talk to him or her about everything. Medieval history, psychology, marketing, events, politics. So this one of those that you can go and get, a beer or 2 or 15 and stay forever. A person has been very, very involved in a number of industry associations, and I think someone that thinks differently. So that would be Klaus Spann. Klaus Spann works at IBM. I would highly recommend him because he looks at the industry from a completely different perspective. and has a very holistic view that goes from psychology, the evolutionary psychology, business, strategy, events, and it gives you always the angle and the answers that you are not expecting to. So that's what I value about him. That will be my choice.
Excellent. I think we'll follow up and see if we can get Klaus on the show. That would be great. Thank you for that recommendation. So, Oscar, I just want to say again, big appreciation for being with us. Hope you enjoy listening back, and hopefully you recommend this to your friends and your peers. And for anybody listening, I hope you enjoy the podcast. Please do subscribe and rate us, and check back again for future episodes of the podcast. In the meantime, take care. Thank you for listening to this edition of the Event Manager Podcast. Please subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. For the latest news and the best articles on technology and innovation in the event industry, head over to eventmb.com.